Hello there and welcome to my video. In this video we will go through the whole Halo lore, actually most of the main happenings. As I think you will at this point know, this video contains spoilers. Also, if I miss some little parts or some details or get something wrong in this video, please tell me in the comments. I just didn't have the time to go through the whole Google because of the school and I also needed some free time. The Halo series has always been one of my favorite game series, so I thought, why not to use most of my free time for this bullshit, editing and script writing. Anyway, let's get into it. Very long ago, there were very intelligent species called precursors, which created two species called forerunners and humans, so they called passed their legacy to them. The two species coexist and began to evolve and spread to the galaxy. As time got by, the precursors had to pass their legacy, so they chose to pass their legacy to humanity. Forerunners got very jealous about that and started a war against precursors. Forerunners win the war pretty quickly, and remaining precursors turned themselves into a dust-like stuff so they can rebuild themselves later. Because of Forerunners' win against precursors, Forerunners claim the mantle of responsibility, the same thing which was called legacy, and they take over the galaxy. Long after that, the precursors' dust has corrupted and transformed into a parasite called the Flood. It attacks on human territory, and humans starts to destroy planets and flee in hopes of destroying the Flood and surviving. Eventually, humans end up in Forerunner territory, and they keep fighting against the Flood. Forerunners, who had no idea about the Flood, watches this as an act of aggression from humans, which started the Human-Forerunner War. Humans lost the war, and it was then when the Forerunners found out the Flood. They tried to fight, but it was already too late. When all hopes were gone, Forerunner decided to build 13 installations, known as the Halo Array. Killing Flood food was the only way to stop it. Installations were built to destroy every Sentinel life in galaxy and possibly the parts of other galaxies, as 343 Guilty Spark says.
25,000 light years? That is the effective range of this installation. According to the star charts archived on board this installation, I estimate that there are 3,792 worlds capable of sustaining biological sentient life within that 25,000 light-year range. In reality, it may be significantly more than that. And if the full array was tuned and activated by Installation 00, the harmonics of the overlapping waves would magnify that effect exponentially, cascading to cover every known star system.
A Forerunner called Librarian was ordered to plant seeds of every species on their homeworlds, so after the firing of Halo rings, the Sentinel life, called Crowback, Librarian planted a seed of species called Shanshium on the Forerunner planets, so they could find the Forerunner technology and become the protectors of the galaxy. Also, the Librarian keeps samples of the Flood on Installation 04, so the species could later find a cure against the Flood. Order was given, and the Halo Array was fired. The Flood and all Sentinel life in the galaxy dies. Long time after the firing of the Halo rings, the species starts to evolve again, and soon some of them start to travel in space. The Shanshu discovers the Forerunner leftover technology and starts to believe Forerunners as a gods. Also, they believe that firing of the Halo rings will send them to a godlike existence. The Shanshums discovered a Sangheili, and when they tried to liberate them, they rebelled, which gave a start to war between Shanshum and Sangheili. After over 14 years of war, they signed a treaty to end the war and form up the Covenant. Humans have started traveling in space and comes into contact with Covenant. Later on, Covenant learns that they should have taken over the mantle of responsibility and not the Forerunners. Covenant does not like the fact and decides to attack on one of the human fleets, which leads to human-Covenant war. Ship named Spirit of Fire was sent to war-ruined planet called Harvest to investigate Covenant activity. Later on, they find out that Covenant has excavated something on the planet's northern pole, which is a Forerunner facility. They pick up a signal that points a human-colonized planet called Arcadia. As they arrive, the planet's defense are already down and the Covenant is destroying cities and killing civilians. Spirit of Fire asks a local Spartan squad for help in evacuation. Professor Anders has been kidnapped by Arbiter and elites. Spirit of Fire follows them. The planet they arrive at has somehow the Flood running around. Adler escapes and they find out that the Forerunner technology can be activated only by humans. The Spirit of Fire decides to extract its hyper generator and makes a supernova that destroys the whole planet. In that way, the whole Covenant can't take the Forerunner technology. Spirit of Fire, for these reasons, lost its power of movement. So, Spirit of Fire has no other option than put the whole crew in cryonic sleep and hope that someone will find them. Years later, a Spartan squad called Noble has been sent to planet Reach to fight against rebel Erectians, but as they get there, they found out that Covenant has been invaded Reach. Noble is ordered to defend Reach. Dr. Halsey calls Noble Squad to Sword Base and gives Noble 6 an AI called Cortana, which is important in destroying a Covenant. In the last moments of the Reach, Captain Keyes comes to get the Noble 6, but he decides to stay on Reach and pretend cover to escaping ship. As Pillar of Autumn flees, Reach falls and Noble Squad with it. Couple weeks after the invasion of Reach, the Pillar of Autumn slips space jumps accidentally to one of the Halo rings, which is the installation 04, also known as Alpha Halo. On board, John 117, also known as Master Chief, has been woken up, and Captain Keyes gives him Cortana and tells him to take care of it. Covenant forces invades the Pillar of Autumn. Master Chief escapes to Alpha Halo with the other survivors. They start to fight against the Covenant in Alpha Halo, and later they discover the Flood, which was stored there and found by the Covenant. 343 Cultist Sparks talks to John and teleports him to the library, where he recreates the index. After that, he goes to the Halo control room, where Cortana stops John from turning the index and tells John that halos are super weapons. So John decides to overload the Pillar of Autumn's reactors, which auto-landed on the ring. Before he can do that, he has to get a chip from the Captain Keys, who is in this point is in a big brain flawed form. So he gets the chip, and with a couple of well-placed grenades, John destroys the ship and the whole ring. Sometime after that, John is back on the Earth and everyone is getting a medal. On the Covenant side, an elite was on trial because he was not able to stop of destruction of Installation 04, which leads to elite's torture. Later on, he was successful as an arbiter. Arbiter meant a shamed soldier who could get his honor back by dying in battle. Let's get back to the humans. So in the middle of medal giving, a Covenant force accidentally attacks on Earth. After Chief gives the Covenant back their bomb, he continues fighting in Earth, in a city called New Mombasa, where he destroys one of the scarabs and returns to ship named in Amberglad, which is commanded by Captain Key's daughter, Miranda Keys. In Amberglad follows a Covenant ship which slipspace jumps on top of a new Mombasa, which leads to Installation 05, also known as the Delta Halo. Their chief kills the Prophet of Regret and escapes glassing by foot. On the Covenant side, Arbiter is sent to kill the heretic leader and did a pretty good job. He finds a cultist bark, which Tartarus captures. As Arbiter gets back on the High Charity, he finds out that Demon, aka Master Chief, has killed the Prophet of Regret. Remaining prophets blame the elites of not being capable to stop the Chief, which leads to brutes replacing the elites. Arbiter is still an arbiter, so he is sent to another suicidal mission on the library this time. His mission is to get the index so they could activate the ring. Well, Arbiter succeeds and captures Miranda Keys and Sausage Johnson too. As Tartarus and other brutes arrive, the Arbiter gives the prisoners and the index to them, and after that Tartarus reveals that Prophets has ordered him to be killed. Arbiter watches as terrified as Tartarus pushes him into the deep hole with a gravity hammer. Chief and Arbiter is saved by a Gravemind who controls all the flood.
What is that?
I am a monument to all your sins.
He wants to talk with the Chief and Arbiter. In this point, Gravemind helps the Arbiter to question his journey. Also, the Gravemind wants the Chief and Arbiter to stop the firing of the Halo rings. So, he teleports Arbiter next to the Halo's control room and Chief to the High Charity, so they could find the index and stop the firing of the Halo ring. Same time at the High Charity is invaded by the Flood and the index is given to Tartarus. Prophet of Truth escapes, but the other prophet is killed by Flood. So after that, Chief teleports to High Charity. He starts to fight his way through the Flood and the Covenant. Also, he notices that there's a civil war going in the Covenant. Chief finds an almost dead prophet who is infected by the Flood, but he reveals nothing. Chief escapes to the Earth by launching himself in a gravity lift, which gets him to an old Forerunner ship. Cortana was left to High Charity. In that case, the ring will fire because Cortana could explode the High Charity and the ring with it. Arbiter, on the other hand, was heading to the Halo's control room with help of the Sergeant Johnson. Arbiter tries to tell Tartarus about the true purpose of the Halo rings, but Tartarus is too blinded by his great journey thing and activates the ring and tries to kill Arbiter. But Arbiter turns out to have a reverse card and kills Tartarus instead. And Miranda Keyes gets the index just in time. Failed Halo ring firing put all the remaining rings in standby, which could be fired all at the same time with a remote actuation from ARC, also known as Installation 00. Same time, an ODST squad is getting ready for a drop. As they drop down, their pods get hit by a EMP caused by Covenant ships, which jumped on top of the new Mombasa. Their team scatters and they try to group up. As ODST are grouping up, they find an engineer that has a very much knowledge about the Covenant, so it's very important. So the ODST escapes with a stolen enemy phantom. After that, Sergeant Johnson interrogates the engineer. I don't really know what else to say. I just put Halo 3 ODST in this video because I felt like some of you will be angry if I don't put it in this video. So anyway, after some time, the Chief crash lands on Earth, where the Arbiter and Sergeant Johnson saves him. Humans locates the Forerunner ship from Earth, which they try to destroy, but it escapes with the rest of the Covenant fleet. Suddenly, an infected Covenant ship crash lands to Earth and starts battle against the Flood in Earth. After a big battle, Chief finds a message recorded by Cortana, which says that she knows the way to the Ark. So humans and new elite allies goes through the slip space portal created by Forerunner ship, which leads to the Ark. Big battle starts at the Ark and the 343 Quilty Spark is supporting the humans and elites. Chief is ordered to capture one of the Forerunner towers, and after that High Charity, which is infected by Flood, crashes to the ring. Arbiter was sent to another tower, and Chief does not hear anything about him, so the Chief goes to save him. After that, you climb up the last tower with Arbiter, the same tower where the last prophet, the prophet of True, was supposed to be. When the Chief and Arbiter reaches the top of the tower, they gain support from the Flood because the Flood doesn't want the firing of the rings either. So they push to the prophet where Miranda Keyes is killed. So the Arbiter kills the prophet of True, which is half dead by the Flood, and immediately after that Flood turns against them. They fight their way through the Flood, and the Chief experiences weird hallucinations about Cortana, which leads to a section where Ark builds a new ring, but this ring isn't just a ring. It's a replacement for the ring that Master Chief destroyed in Halo Combat Evolved. Chief gets a brilliant idea, but before he can do that, he must get Cortana back. So Master Chief goes into the ruins of High Charity, aka in Fire Pitch of Hell. There he fights against a ton of lords and saves Cortana. They evacuate the area around the ring, and Sergeant Johnson, Arbiter and Master Chief goes into the Halo's control room. In the control room, Guilty Spark informs that Halo Ring will be able to fire in just couple days. Johnson is not happy with that because at the moment the Flood would already get the whole ring in control. So Johnson decides to fire the ring anyway. Guido Sparkle watches this as an unacceptable and shoots Johnson. Master Chief kills the Guilty Spark and activates the Halo ring. After that, the Arbiter and Chief gets the hell out of there and drives in the ship. Sadly, when they are escaping, their ship gets blown half by the blast from the exploding Ark. The Arbiter's side crash lands on Earth, where he was saved, but the Master Chief's side starts floating in space. Chief has no other option than freeze himself up. Before that, Cortana drops an emergency beacon, and after that, Chief tells him to wake him up when she needs him. When Chief is in Cairo sleep, an elite named Jul Madhama regroups the Covenant again under the leading of the last Forerunner, called Didact. After 5 years, Cortana wakes Chief up because the ship has been boarded by the Jul Madhama's forces. Chief falls on a shield word, which was a Forerunner artifact, which was supposed to protect the Forerunners from the Flood. They get a crazy idea about how to escape from the shield world, and they succeed, and they teleport themselves to the forest planet, where their path crosses with a human ship named Infinity. Chief goes to the Infinity, and the ship commander says to Chief to surrender the Cortana to him, but Chief stays calm and just says, "No!" A lieutenant helps him to get a ship and stop the Composer that the Didact stole. Composer is another Forerunner artifact which can transform Sentinel life in a mechanical body, so it will be immune to the Flood. Before going to stop the Composer, Chief sees a dream where a librarian talks to him and gives him a gift which will prevent the Chief from composing. Chief goes to the laboratory and tries to save professors, but it's already too late, and Didact shoots the Composer at the laboratory and turns everything else into a dust except Chief, thanks to a librarian gift. Chief wakes up and lies next to a Composer which is straight heading to the Earth. At the Earth, Composer has already started composing Earth. Infinity shoots a hole into a Composer which allows the Chief to get in there. Inside, he meets up with Didact and they start fighting. Chief almost falls down, but Cortana saves him by distracting Didact, and Chief climbs up and detonates a Forerunner grenade which causes Didact to fall off the cliff. After that, Chief detonates a nuke he was carrying and the Composer explodes. Cortana saves Chief, and by using heart-like technology, she is able to touch Chief for the first time. After that, she welcomes Chief to home and fades away. Chief returns to Earth, where he takes his armor off after a goddamn long time. After some time, there's a Spartan squad called Fireteam Osiris. They have taken a mission to capture Dr. Halsey from Jul Madhama. They succeed, and they actually killed Jul Madhama pretty easily. Same time, Chief is with his blue team, and they are on a mission to save an agent. Everything goes on well unless the Chief falls from the bridge destroyed by a hunter. Down there he sees a Cortana which says, "Domain is open, Meridian is next." After that, huge guardian rises and Chief realizes that it was all just a big hallucination. So Chief believes the hallucination. So the blue team decides to disobey orders to go to Infinity and goes to Meridian. Fire Team Osiris is ordered to capture the blue team and bring them back by using some kind of grenades that stops their armor. Fire Team Osiris arrives at the Meridian where they come to the Forerunner port where they come against Forerunner Guardian, who claim to be under the service of Cortana, which was a surprise to Fire Team Osiris because the blue team got past the port pretty easily. They meet up with the blue team and the Master Chief beats down Spartan Locke pretty easily after the Chief goes through the portal with blue team. Fire Team Osiris goes to the Sanghelius, where they, together with Arbiter's forces, they land on the Guardian, which leads them to Master Chief. Blue Team comes across with Cortana, who just literally kidnaps them. Team Osiris saves the Blue Team and thinks that Cortana is dead, but she is actually alive and attacks on planet with his giant Guardian. 1 year later, Spirit of Fire reactivated, and the group wakes from Cairo sleep. Soon they realize they have drifted to outside of the Milky Way, on top of the Installation 00, aka Ark. On the Ark is an aggressive Covenant force known as Banished, which is led by a brute called Patriarchs, who rebelled against the Covenant in the end of the Human-Covenant War. Spirit of Fire starts a battle against the Banished and quickly learns a way to contact UNSC again. The Ark was creating a new installation, named Installation 09. The Installation 04 was destroyed by Master Chief, which meant that the ring will slip space jump to the same place where the Installation 04 was. Fortunately, the Installation 04 was close to the human colony Reach, so they thought they could use a super weapon as a method to get back to the contact with UNSC. But before the slip space jumping into the heart of humanity, they of course have to reach the ring's control room and disable the kill button. Sadly, Dr. Andre, who was sent to disable the ring's firing mechanism, fails and rings slip space jumps, and Spirit of Fire remains at the Ark fighting and waits for Andres to return. On the way into slip space, the ring is unexpectedly pulled out of it. Atul goes to the ring surface to investigate and is confronted by a guardian. And this brings us to this point. After all this, Halo will continue with Halo Infinity. And in this point we can only speculate that's what's going to happen next. What can I say? I know there's also very many other stories from Halo, but I don't just have time to make a 10 hours lasting video where I just talk. It will be boring to you too. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed and remember to like and subscribe. Also tell your thoughts in the comments down below. I hope I see you in the future. Bye!